Can't take me anywhere. Hey guys, how you doing? I just thought I'd shoot this Homebrew Wednesday outside for once in my yard, since it's a very nice night out. I actually wanted to shoot this video during the day, but I didn't get a chance. So here we are. It's probably about 10:30 p.m. and really is beautiful outside right now. And I have a beer, as you can see. So cheers. Talk about this in a minute. First beer of the day. Oh no, I had one at lunchtime, sorry. But that didn't count. So, how you guys doing? And no, it's not a Rickards beer. It's here, we'll just turn that around. This is actually one of the Coopers I did. This is a sparkling ale. And I think this is the one I brewed on a video recently. Just to show you how I sort of bang these things together down in my basement when I do them. Let's talk about this for a moment. And it's very cold, and I took a lot of care to carbonate this beer because it's a sparkling ale, and I'm thinking sparkling is supposed to mean lots of carbonation. So that's what I wanted to make sure it had. So as far as the taste goes, it's very bold. And the one thing that I'm noticing about this beer, there's a definitely a prominent malt going on in this beer, and it's probably some sort of a crystal malt. Now, I don't know the recipe, what they put into the extract in this beer, because obviously they put more than just two row. They put different grains in to make it the beer that it is, and the hops too. But there's a definite crystal malt flavor in this beer that is very prominent. Now, I could be wrong. It could be another grain, but to me, it tastes like there's a sweetness there. Now, it's got a bit of a candy flavor to it. And when I brewed it, I noticed that the final gravity was 1020, which is, for me, that's really high. But I went online and I looked up other people who had brewed this same beer, and they were also noticing that it was finishing at a higher gravity than normal. So, and considering I brewed this at 20 liters instead of 23, I always do that with these pre-hopped kits, these Coopers. You just get a much better product when you do it that way. And even on the can now, it says, some of them, it says if you want to brew 23 liters, add this to it. But if you want to brew 20 liters, add that to it. So what they caught on or something, it's obvious to them that it can be brewed at a higher potency, if you will, and you get a better beer. Simple as that. So it finished at a higher gravity, and to me that means that there's definitely some unfermentable sugars in the beer, and that's the other reason why I think there's got to be a lot of crystal malt in this beer. It's good. It's very good, actually. I'm enjoying it. So there's another one for you. Another one of those simple beers. Before I forget, I want to say, give a shout out to this handsome bloke in the middle of the screen there. His name is Jake, and off to his right there is his lovely better half, Katie. And I'm showing this because here's a picture of Katie brewing her first full-blown beer, and this is it's a vanilla Java porter. And man, I wish I was brewing that beer. It looks great. And so by now I'm sure that they've brewed this, or she has. And I hope it turned out great. I hope it turns out wonderful as it sounds. Stovetop brewing rocks. It's awesome, it's easy, and it's cheap. And it's very quick and easy to do. So thumbs up to you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Cheers, I like the shirt. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. T-shirts are available at tgtshirts.com if you're interested. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about, again, I've talked about kegging before. I've been thinking about kegging and bottling and all this kind of stuff. I don't know what percentage of people, brewers that I know of anyway, are actually keggers, if you will. I think 2/3 of people who brew beer are probably bottling their beers, and then maybe the other third they're kegging. Kegging really is the way to go as far as I'm concerned, but some people like to bottle their beers. You know, they don't mind doing it. It's not raining, is it? I don't think it is. I hope not. Anyway, some people enjoy bottling their beers. I personally don't. I don't have a lot of room, and it's frustrating to me to do that. Well, that's why I keg. But I do miss opening a bottle of beer and pouring it into the glass. Now, when I do wine, I generally oh, I forgot the wine bottle. Oh well, it doesn't matter. You know what a bottle of wine looks like, I think, right? When I do my wine, I normally use a wine thief, or I'll put the wine in a bladder that has a little tap on the bottom. So like I think some of you may have seen this in the past. Let me put this down for a second. It's a big plastic bag. It's made to hold alcohol. Better keep my voice down. And it's alcohol proof. It's food grade plastic, and you fill it up with the wine, and then you snap on this little tap, and then you can either put it in your fridge and just lay it on the rack, or what I do because red wine you're not supposed to refrigerate. What I do is I just get one of the boxes that the wine kits come in, put a little hole in the near the bottom, and I just put the bag of wine in there and poke the little nozzle through the hole, and Bob's your uncle, right? So that's great for red wine. Of course, white wine might be a little different. You might need, because white wine is supposed to be refrigerated. So with white wine, I generally do bottle it. And I'll tell you, I do miss opening bottles of wine. It's nice to get that corkscrew in there and pull it out and pour a nice, glass of red wine, the way it sloshes around when it goes in and stuff. So it is something that I do miss. And of course, with wine, you only got 20 some, or well, no more than 30 bottles to deal with. With beer, a lot of times, depending on the size of the bottles, you have 60 some bottles that you have to clean, sanitize, fill, and then cap, however you do it. That's a lot. And I'm sorry, maybe I have a short attention span, but for me, that just gets so repetitive and monotonous, so I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore. The other thing is that, when I did bottle my beers many years ago, or a few years ago, I would do, I'd have them in a box, I'd do one row, I'd fill the bottles, and then I'd cap them. And then I'd do the next row, fill the bottles, cap them. I actually don't know why I did that. It was a stupid idea. Why didn't I just fill all the bottles all at once? Just get them all filled up, and then go back around and start capping them. You have to think about this. You got your fermenter, or your carboy. Now, the carboy, it might be slightly different because it's only a small hole in the top, but you got your fermenter open up with your siphoning apparatus in it, that all that beer is exposed to the air. You really would want to get it into the bottles as quickly as possible before you cap the bottles, because then there's only a tiny bit of it exposed to the air because of the neck of the bottle. So if you do bottle your beers, my recommendation is fill first, then cap. Don't do some and then cap, and then some and then cap, because you really are, the beer is safer once it's in the bottle. Even if the bottle's not capped yet, still a lot less of it is exposed to the air. Now, if you're a kegging person, I have a little shortcut for you that I've been doing lately, and I didn't want to say anything really until I did this a few times, and I've been doing it for 3 months now as of this recording, and I've had absolutely no problems with it. Now, normally your kegs, you hear that horrible sound of the keg emptying at the end of a keg, which is always a nightmare when you pour your last beer out of the keg. So you take your keg, you clean it out, you rinse it, you fill it with some sort of a detergent like PBW, or I just use OxyClean. It works just perfect. You run it through the line. You got to put some CO2 in it to get the pressure up, so you can run it through the line, the beer line, and clean it out. Then you got to rinse it and run it through the line again. and then you got to sanitize it and run it through the line again. That's 3 times you have to connect it up to your CO2 tank and actually make it so that you can pass the liquids through the line, the beer line, so that you can rinse them and get it ready to put beer in it. And it's a little bit of work. It's certainly less work than bottling, but it's a little bit more than I would like. So because I'm I'm a little bit lazy sometimes. I'm sorry. I'm just the less work the better for me, as long as it tastes good. And boy, that's tasty beer. I found a shortcut, and I'm going to show you this. I shot some video the other day that if you're a kegging person, you can do this 2-3 times in a row. The thing you have to remember is that your keg, if your last beer that came out of that keg tastes good, then you know that inside that keg is sanitized. There's no bugs or infection in there. So basically, you can remove the lid, dump what's in there out, and then put new beer in. And if it's the same sort of type of beer, then it won't matter, if it picks up a flavor from the last bit. It's negligible, right? So, but I don't always like to do that, because if I'm experimenting with a new beer and I want to really taste it, then I'll want to clean the keg out thoroughly. Cleaning the keg, takes a little while. Here's a method for you guys that I found works very well, and it saves time. The keg is already sanitized. All you're doing is just ensuring that it stays sanitized, and you're actually getting a pretty clean interior in your keg in less than 5 minutes. Here's how I do it. Grab your keg out of your refrigerator, leave the beer hose attached, but disconnect the gas. Prepare a kettle of boiling water. Sanitize your siphoning gear as usual. Right when your kettle comes to a boil, depressurize your keg. Leave to get the beer line on. Take the lid off, set that aside. More than likely, it's still sanitized from the last time you put beer in it, so just dump the rest of the beer out. Grab your kettle of boiled water and just carefully pour it in. Now put the lid back on. Now, it's going to be hot. Leave the beer line on and shake. Shake it for maybe a minute. Okay, after about a minute, you've created enough pressure inside your keg from the steam. Don't release the pressure. Use that to clean out your line and run the boiling water through your line. You can do this twice if you want. I'm only going to do it once. Okay. Now, release the pressure. Carefully open the keg. It's going to be hot. And dump out the boiling water. Caution, I have burned myself. Be careful. Try to get the rest of the water out of the line. Make sure you get all the water out. As I said, you can do this twice if you want, but you didn't use any CO2 or any sanitizer except for your siphoning material. Run some cold water down the side with your old green utility hose. Just to cool the keg down. You don't want it to burn your beer. Siphon your new beer into the keg. You hear a noise like that? Make sure your hose is at the very bottom. Don't want to hear that when you're kegging your beer. That's it. Just proceed as normal. I think you're pretty safe to do it like that. And the best part about it is that you don't use any of your CO2 to do this. The only time you use the CO2 is when you purge the keg before you put it in your refrigerator or store it, whatever you're going to do with it. Purge the CO2 out of it so that the beer is packaged in a safe environment. So that's a tip. That's my tip for you guys. Try it. I can get that done in 5 minutes, minus the filling of the keg, of course, which takes about 7 minutes. So within 15 minutes I've got my beer in a keg and in my refrigerator. Now I've got a chest freezer, the temperature controller, which normally makes it into a fridge, so that's where I keep my kegs in there. But when I'm putting a new keg in, I take the temperature way down below freezing and I leave it there for about 4 hours so that the keg gets really cold, and then I bring it back up to normal and then I carbonate it. I like to, if I'm in a hurry, I'll roll the keg, I'll connect up the CO2. Sometimes I do it with connecting it up to the beer line instead of the gas line. The CO2 will actually clip onto the beer line. It'll clip onto both. It doesn't care. And I've seen people do this as well. One of the people I saw do it was Tiny from Off Tap Brewing. You put it on the beer line. The beer line goes all the way down to the bottom of the keg. And then you just rock the keg standing up for 3 or 4 minutes, right? And you carbonate your beer. You can hear it going in. You can hear the bubbles going, blah, 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 and it's awesome. And you get fairly good results that way. It's good enough to taste the beer, sample it, see how it, how it's going to taste. For me, it doesn't really get carbonated fully. It doesn't do the best job. It's good, but leaving it for 36 hours at 30 pounds per square inch, really, you get a great carbonation that way. Of course, this all depends on temperature and everything else, so you have to experiment with your own system to see what works for you. There's a dog back there that's been barking all night long, and I can't understand for the life of me how anyone can leave their dog alone like that outside or in the house to be that upset and bark all night. I would never do that with my Daisy. Anyways, I digress. I'm sorry. That's how I keg. If I'm in a hurry, some of you have seen me do it on my live broadcast. I'll just go back there, I'll rock it. But normally, if you've got the time, definitely just let it do it on its own. 30 pounds, 36 hours, 24, 36, somewhere in there. Some people just put it at serving pressure and leave it for a couple weeks, and that will also do it. That might even be better than anything, really. You get nice, slow, natural carbonation. Because what I find, what happens when you rock the keg, is that it'll carbonate the beer, but the carbonation won't stay in the beer. It wants to come out. It's not acclimated into the beer yet. It's there, but it wants out. So as soon as you put it down to serving pressure, I've noticed that sometimes I get a bit of a back pressure through my regulators. And that's the CO2 coming out of the beer, and then you end up, it gets flatter and flatter, and you have to recarbonate. It works, but it's better to leave it if you can, and longer to let it carbonate, and let the carbonation get comfortable in the beer so it'll stay in the beer. Serving pressure, as high as you can go without, blowing the bottom out of your glass and creating tons of foam on your beer. Some people say 12 pounds. You have to do this with your own system to see what works. I keep mine at about 7 or 8 pounds per square inch for serving. And if any lower than that, and you do lose carbonation, and you have to recarbonate halfway through sometimes, I don't want to make this sound complicated. Believe me, if you've bottled for any length of time and you're sick of bottling, kegging is a dream come true. It really is. It makes things so much easier if you can get the CO2 tank and get all the stuff together. I've got kegging videos that I did a few years ago that are still good enough to watch. Like, they're, you know, there's no reason for me to redo them because they're still accurate as far as I know. So you can watch those. I'll put a link to those down below in the description. So if you're thinking of getting into kegging, you'll see how I do things normally. But I don't clean my kegs every single time I put beer in them. I'll do the boiling water thing. Good enough for me. Bob is your uncle. There you have it. Tell me what you think. How did it work? Did it work good? Did it save you time? Did it save you detergent and CO2? I'm sure it will. That's about all I've got for this week for you guys. I'm going to finish off this Rickard's beer. No, I'm just joking. This Cooper's Sparkling Ale. Anyway, guys, cheers. 17brewcrew.com. Great place. Great forum. Loving it. And I'm out. I'll sit out here and finish the rest of this beer. And maybe have a few more. Right? Beautiful night. Cheers, guys. Be safe. Be safe. And enjoy.